One of the most prestigious races in motorsports, the 24 Hours of Le Mans, is just around the corner. And I'm sure you recently started following the World Endurance Championship, or you're just curious about the hype around the 24 Hours of Le Mans, but don't have much knowledge about it. Well, don't worry, we've got you covered. You're watching Desi Racing Go. I'm Anuj Tripathi, and this is VEC 101. So, let's get started. What is VEC? Let's take a look at the history of World Endurance Championship, or VEC in short. VEC is a relatively new championship when you compare it to something like Formula 1 or MotoGP. It was first run in 2012 as a replacement to the Intercontinental Le Mans Cup, which was an endurance sports car racing tournament started in 2010 and was organized by ACO, the same body that organizes 24 Hours of Le Mans every year. However, for 2012, ACO and FIA announced the creation of a new championship that we now know as the FIA World Endurance Championship. And VEC became the first endurance series of World Championship status since the demise of World Sports Car Championship at the end of 1992. When VEC was first started in 2012, there were four classes: LMP1, LMP2, GT, Grand Tourers. Divided into GT were GT Pro teams with professional driver lineups, and GT-AM for a team featuring a mix of professional and amateur drivers. But after the 2017 season, a decline in manufacturers' interest will be seen towards the LMP1 category. So the FIA conducted a study into the future regulations of the championship's top category and came up with the proposal of LMH, or Le Mans Hypercar. The proposal was designed to make the championship more appealing to car manufacturers and cited flagship models such as the Aston Martin Vulcan and the McLaren Senna GTR as examples of the car the new regulations were hoping to attract. In 2020, IMSA and ACO hosted a joint press conference. Now, if you don't know what IMSA is, consider it as the American equivalent of VEC, like how IndyCar is to F1, IMSA is to VEC. Right, so in 2020, IMSA and ACO hosted a joint press conference and it was said that the top category in IMSA, which was DPI 2.2, would be replaced by LMDH. The LMDH has the same regulations as LMH, allowing manufacturers to compete in VEC and IMSA with the same car in the top category. Now, VEC is currently running two car classes, the Hypercar class and the GT3 class. In the previous year, VEC also ran the LMP2 class, which has been discontinued for the 2024 season due to an increase in the size of Hypercar class. So basically, VEC got so successful with the Hypercar regulations, they had to sacrifice the LMP2 class. The Hypercar class first appeared in the 2021 season of the championship, with LMH entries from Alpine, Glickenhaus and Toyota. And later in the 2023 season, even the LMDH cars that take part in IMSA were able to compete alongside the LMH cars. Some cars that race in IMSA and VEC both are BMW, Cadillac, Porsche and Lamborghini. Now let's talk about the different teams and manufacturers in VEC. The championship allows teams to develop their own cars according to regulations. Such teams would be the factory teams or manufacturers which are already making cars for the normal public, and then they adhere to the regulations in VEC and make cars according to VEC. So either you can be a manufacturer. If you don't have enough money to make your own car and be a manufacturer, then don't worry. VEC also allows you to buy cars from manufacturers and enter as a privateer team. Now, VEC currently features 19 hypercar entries, both from the manufacturers and the privateers, and cars from 9 of the biggest car manufacturers in the world, such as Alpine, BMW, Cadillac, Ferrari, Isotta Franschini, Lamborghini, Peugeot, Porsche and Toyota. The LMGT3 class will have 18 entries from privateers. In LMGT3, the manufacturers are Aston Martin, BMW, Corvette, Ferrari, Ford, Lexus, Lamborghini, McLaren and Porsche. Now you might be wondering, a grid that is filled up with so many different manufacturers with different type of cars, how do they keep the cars performing at the same level and how do they keep the grid competitive? Well, the answer is really simple. They balance out the performance by something that's called balance of performance, or BOP for short. This allows cars from various manufacturers and of different designs to be able to race together on equal terms, giving all competitors the chance to be successful and keeping the championship attractive to new manufacturers. Now, the process of assigning BOP is quite rigorous to ensure that the grid remains competitive and no one is being, let's say, put at a disadvantage through BOP. The performance or the balance of performance is assigned by testing and analysis of a certain model's performance through previous races. So let's say that a manufacturer has been winning a lot of races recently, then the BOP for the next race would be put on that manufacturer much more harder than its competitors. Through BOP, various aspects of the car that can affect the car's performance, such as engine horsepower, vehicle weight, aerodynamics, are then adjusted. By analyzing performance patterns of each car, organizers can change BOP of a car at any point during the season. Okay, so now with the cars and everything sorted, let's look at who drives them. The drivers racing in WEC are divided into different categories, and that is done by a dedicated committee of the FIA. The categories are bronze, silver, gold or platinum. Bronze driver is a driver who has obtained their first license after the age of 30 and having comparable level of performance to bronze drivers. Silver driver is a driver who is under the age of 30 in their first year with license or has no significant single-seater or karting experience, or who started their motorsport career in their 20s or earlier. A gold driver is a driver who is considered as a professional in motorsport. He has participation in the highest level karting for 3 or more years, should be a top 5 finisher in a tier 2 series such as Formula 3, DTM, NASCAR, etc. Or should be a winner of a tier 3 series such as Formula 4, National GT Series, National Touring Car Championships. Now platinum drivers, they are the top of the category. They must have held the super license in the present or past and should be a top 5 finisher of a tier 1 series such as Formula 1, Formula 2, Super Formula, IndyCar, etc. However, it must be noted that the FIA committee can take other things into account while categorizing the driver as well. In the hypercar, bronze drivers cannot be admitted, and in the LMGT3 class, a crew of 2 or 3 drivers including at least one bronze driver plus another bronze driver or silver driver can be admitted. If you've seen even a little bit of WEC or endurance racing in general, you might have seen the drivers swapping in the middle of the race. So when do they decide that they want to switch? Now that comes down to the strategy of the individual team and depends on the skill set that each driver brings on board. For example, a driver could be very good in the rain compared to his teammates. Hence, he will be doing his stint when it's raining to get the most out of the car. FIA also has a minimum and maximum driving time for each driver, which depends on the race duration and the class. Hypercar class, there is no minimum driving time. For the LMGT3 class, however, the minimum driving time is as follows. If the race is 6 hours long, the minimum driving time for a silver or bronze rated driver would be 1 hour 45 minutes. For a 8 hour race, that would be 2 hours 20 minutes. And for a 10 hour race, that will be 2 hours 55 minutes. And talking about the maximum driving time, in any category, a driver cannot drive for more than 4 hours within a 6 hours period. This is excluding the time spent in pits and time lost due to stoppage of red flags or safety cars, etc. If you are a motorsports fan of any series, then you'll find some familiar faces in WEC. If you are an F1 fan, then you'll recognize people such as Jenson Button, Brendan Hartley, Kamui Kobayashi, Stoffel Van Dorn, Nick DeVries and Robert Kubica to name a few. Actually, there are a lot more drivers from F1 who are in WEC. Can you comment below and tell which ex-F1 driver is gonna be at Le Mans this year? Also, even though Nico Hülkenberg has no podium in F1, he won the 24 Hours of Le Mans in 2015 with Porsche. Fernando Alonso too won the race in 2018 with Toyota and also went on to win the championship as well that season. So technically, Alonso is a 3-time world champion. Now if you are into Formula E, you must recognize drivers such as Sebastian Buemi, Jean-Eric Vergne, Nico Müller, Robin Freins, etc. If you are a MotoGP fan, then you'll find something for you here as well. Because this year, even the legendary Valentino Rossi is taking part in WEC. So coming to this year in WEC, what's new and what changes are from the 2023 season? Firstly, Hypercar welcomes new manufacturers such as Alpine, BMW, Isotta Franschini and Lamborghini. Coming to the GT class, WEC will now feature LMGT3 cars. These are replacing the LMGT-E cars that have been on the grid since 2012, which was the inaugural season. In 2024, WEC for the first time visited Lusail International Circuit in Qatar and the Enzo Edino Ferrari in Italy, or commonly known as Imola. The series will also return to Interlagos in Brazil and Cota in the USA later this year. The 2024 WEC features 8 rounds in 8 different countries across the world. The season was kick-started with pre-season testing, also known as Prologue, in Qatar on the 24th of February, followed by the first round in Qatar on 2nd of March. The most anticipated race of the season, which is a 24-hour Le Mans, will commence from the 13th of June. So what does a race weekend usually look like in WEC? The race weekends typically start on Thursday, except for races which are 8 hours long or 24 hours long. Race weekends for those start on Wednesday. So Thursday kicks off with scrutineering, the driver's stack walk, the driver's briefing, team manager's briefing. And on Friday, there are 2 practice sessions of 90 minutes each. Saturday starts off with the 3rd practice session, that is of 60 minutes. Later on Saturday, we have qualifying. For 2024, both classes will have a 12-minute qualifying followed by a 10-minute long hyperpole session. The top 10 drivers from the qualifying session move on to the hyperpole session. The grid from pole position to P10 is decided in hyperpole. Then coming to the race, the regulations state that each race must at least be 6 hours. Hence 6 hours is the mostly common race duration on the WEC calendar. But there is also an 8-hour race and a 24-hour race. However, the opening race in Qatar wasn't time limited, but rather distance limited. The race was called as the Qatar 1812 kilometers and was around 10 hours long. Now, since the races are of different time durations, the points awarded during the race are also different. For a 6-hour race, it follows the usual point system that F1 also follows. That is, the winner gets 25 points. For a 8-hour long race and also the 10-hour long race, which was the season opener, the winner gets 38 points. For the 24 hours of Le Mans, which is the longest race, the winner gets 50 points. All these points collected during all the races amount to the championship. The FIA has 2 categories of championship or trophies. They are the FIA Endurance World Championship title, which is awarded for the hypercar category, and then comes the FIA Endurance Trophy, which is awarded to the LMGT3 class. Under the FIA Endurance World Championship title, you will find 3 championships. FIA World Endurance Drivers Championship, which is awarded for the hypercar driver that secures the most points for the season. Drivers who, in a group of 2 or 3, have formed a permanent crew throughout the championship season will all score the same number of points and will all become the Drivers' Champion. Then the second one is the FIA World Endurance Champion in the hypercar category. This is awarded to the manufacturer with the maximum points at the end of the season, considering that they are contesting in the championship with at least 2 cars, which does not include the privately owned customer teams. So if you're a manufacturer who wants to win this, you need to have at least 2 cars on your factory team. A team like Isotta Franschini currently only has 1 car on the grid, so they won't be eligible for this. Now the third one is the FIA World Cup for hypercar teams. This is awarded to the privateer teams that secures the most points for the season among the other privateer teams. Now, under the FIA Endurance Trophies, you'll find 2 championships. This one's pretty simple. You have the Drivers' Championship and you have the Teams' Championship. Okay, now we know what WEC is, how the championship works, the drivers, the cars, everything. Let's get to the main part. What is the 24 Hours of Le Mans? It's a race that follows a simple rule. The car that covers the greatest distance in 24 hours is the winner. It is the ultimate endurance test for man and machine. Held annually near the town of Le Mans in France, this race has been around since 1923. The race is considered as one of the crowns of motorsport alongside F1's Monaco GP and the Indy 500. These 3 races form the triple crown of motorsports as the 3 most grueling and prestigious races in the world. Now, just to put things into perspective as how difficult the 24 Hours of Le Mans can get, the greatest distance traveled during the race was 5,410 kilometers back in 2010. That's the record highest during the 24 Hours of Le Mans. And that distance is 6 times the length of Indy 500 and about 18 times longer than an average Formula 1 Grand Prix. So, Le Mans started way back in 1923. That time probably our great-grandparents were still in school. So during that time, Grand Prix racing was dominant form of motorsports throughout Europe. With Le Mans, the idea was to present a different twist. Instead of focusing on the ability of a car company to build the fastest machines, the 24 Hours of Le Mans will concentrate on the ability of manufacturers to build fast yet reliable cars. This encouraged innovation in producing reliable and fuel-efficient vehicles, because endurance racing requires cars that last long and spend as little time in the pits as possible. And Le Mans is not just about the racing. During that specific race, that specific weekend, the whole thing turns into a festival, as the race sees over 250,000 fans coming to the town of Le Mans just to watch the race and experience the thrill. And Le Mans had its share of unforgettable moments as well. The most prominent would be the Ford vs Ferrari battle in the 60s, which later got made into a movie as well. And one could not forget the dramatic finish in 2016, when the number 5 Toyota stopped just 3 minutes before the end of the race. Imagine doing a 24 hours race and losing it just 3 minutes before the end. This is why endurance racing is so good, because until you take the checkered flag, it's not guaranteed that you're going to win. Now, as we mentioned before, that this year only the hypercar and the GT3 cars are part of WEC. But for Le Mans, LMP2 cars will also be a part of the series. So apart from WEC, which is the pinnacle of endurance racing, there is also ELMS, ALMS and IMSA. ELMS is European Le Mans, ALMS is Asian Le Mans, and IMSA is something we've already talked about before in the video. So for ELMS and ALMS, the top class in those championships is still LMP2. And in IMSA, below the LMDH, the LMP2 class still exists. So in the Le Mans 24 Hours this year, there are 16 spots on the grid which will be given to the top performing LMP2 teams from ELMS, ALMS and IMSA. And apart from LMH, GT3, LMP2 cars, there's also something called as the Garage 56, which is part of WEC. These are concept cars intended to test new automotive technologies and may participate in the race under the Garage 56 banner. Such entries are classified in the race results, though are not expected to be competitive as their sole focus is to demonstrate experimental features. And over the years, we have seen some very, let's say, interesting entries under the Garage 56 banner. The program debuted in 2012 with the Delta Wing, an unusual rocket-shaped car fielded by all-American racers and supported by Nissan. The very latest entry was in 2023, which was a modified NASCAR Cup Series next-gen Chevrolet Camaro ZL1 stock car. The name as big as you'd expect US to make. Fielded by Hendrick Motorsports was the Garage 56 entry with 7 times Cup champion Jimmy Johnson, 2009 World Champion and NASCAR driver Jenson Button, and 2010 Le Mans overall and LMP1 winner Mike Rockefeller driving the car. This year, however, there is no Garage 56 entry. So, there you have it, folks. The 24 Hours of Le Mans, a race that's not just about speed, but endurance, strategy, a bit of drama, and very important part, luck. If you enjoyed this video, give us a thumbs up, and don't forget to hit the subscribe button for more motorsports content on Desi Racing Co. And hey, comment below with your favorite Le Mans moment or any questions you have. We'll be very happy to answer it. Until next time, see you guys later. Bye bye.
अबे पिकाचू को लेके आओ बे।
मुंदरी बनाई फिरे ते विच नग जड़वाई फिरे।